Did Loremaster deserve the hate? No, she did not. Thanks for watching. This is T.E. Lawrence signing out. Have a good one. Staying alive. Staying alive. Oh hey, Capitan, how are you doing?
Where do you think you're going?
It's been a while, man.
You didn't answer my question.
I'm just heading back to the studio to finish my human judgment art. It's what you want, right?
Yes, but you also promised to do the Loremaster video. You know Lorenower is waiting for you, right?
And I did. She didn't deserve the hate.
And why did she not deserve the hate?
Because,
Do it again, Laurence. Properly.
Oh, come on, Cap. Don't make me do this, man.
You made that awful joke. Now you're obliged to cover her as well.
But
What was it you said in the Panamonica video?
here in this channel, no one gets left behind. Therefore, this series will not finish until everyone gets covered. Which is also why the series still isn't finished just yet. But you see, Loremaster technically isn't part of the harem.
No buts. You made your bed. Now lay in it.
But
Say but again. Say but again. I dare ya. I double dare you, motherfucker. Say but again.
shitting hell!
The Enclave orders you to redo the video.
Zrób to jeszcze raz.
Udzielę to znowa.
Fine, I'll do it. As much as it pains me. And screw you, Capitan.
You can thank me, Loremaster fans.
No thank you from me. Anyways, as you can see, this one's going to be a different kind of video. Because unlike the other Demon Gals, Loremaster is a huge outlier, given there's no harm to speak of in Examtaker. Therefore, it's difficult to determine whether Loremaster is quote-unquote worth it or not. That, and there's a much bigger elephant to be discussed regarding the Science Demon, which is where she stands within the fandom. In fact, when Examtaker came out, Loremaster proved to be so controversial that it almost split the fandom. One of the reasons for the controversy is the fact that, spoiler alert, Loremaster is actually a fallen version of our lovely Angel Azazel. You can imagine the uproar among many Azazel fans once they found out that their precious angel fell from grace and became a schizo-mad scientist demon. That said, however, I believe the fandom was too focused on Loremaster alone and neglected the bigger picture. Therefore, even if one isn't a fan of the science demon, I found the hate towards her to not only be misdirected, but also a bit overboard. Therefore, what's up ladies and gentlemen, this is T.E. Lawrence, and today, we're gonna discuss whether Loremaster truly deserved the hate or not. Now, before we proceed, I want to caution that what you are about to hear is a scary thing called an opinion. This is just my take on the topic, and you are free to have your own view on Loremaster. Therefore, if you strongly disagree with anything in this video, I only ask you to be civil about your disagreements. I know the overwhelming majority of you are cool people, so this disclaimer probably isn't necessary. But still, given the topic at hand, and the internet in general being quite unhinged, I'd be remiss not to do so. Before we begin, I do not have any Loremaster art to show for, unfortunately. Therefore, instead, enjoy the speed paint of my Japanese demon OC Saiko as an archery athlete in the 2024 Paris Olympics. Still, she does possess the closest resemblance to Loremaster, so it kinda works, I guess. Anyways, the finished piece will be shown at the end. Now, Loremaster, the Science Demon. Let's not beat around the bush. She is the fallen version of Azazel, but for those who haven't played Examtaker, it is basically a sequel to the main game, which follows a certain timeline that results in Azazel's eventual fall after a corruption from grace. No thanks to Lucifer indulging in Azzy's curiosity. Although it's still a mystery of how she did it, Azazel somehow managed to overthrow Lucifer and take the throne for herself, becoming Hell's new supreme leader and transforming the Inferno from a medieval fiefdom to a personal laboratory akin to the Institute in Fallout. In fact, she makes the Enclave look like the good guys. Now, as Loremaster, she fully devotes herself to researching sin itself in hopes of curing it one day. For that, she's also deluded herself to believing that she is still an angel, who's just disguised as a demon, not realizing that those horns and tails are very much real. Besides, she's yet to find her halo anywhere. Nevertheless, deluded or not, Loremaster uses such premise to conduct the most horrific experiments on her subjects, ignoring all ethics and morality in the name of defeating evil. Well, to quote Gideon from Call of Duty Advanced Warfare,
"Yeah, twisted fucks throughout history have used the same argument."
And as for the other demon gals, well, they've clearly seen better days, especially our one and only former Queen of Hell. And for this, I can never forgive Loremaster. However, in spite of my personal abhorrence towards Loremaster and her reprehensible nature, that doesn't make her a badly written character in her own right. In fact, she's a good portrayal of what would happen if Azazel were to fall. For one, despite her being a demon, Loremaster still maintains Azazel's cheerful and dorky personality, as well as her insatiable curiosity and obsessive compulsions towards the research of the very nature of sin. So, like it or not, Loremaster is still very much Azazel and not a completely separate character, despite the denial from the die-hard Azazel fans. In fact, Loremaster taking over Hell and turning the entire Inferno into her personal laboratory is a great representation of her spiraling down her own rabbit hole of intellectual desires. And given her fallen nature, her ignoring all morals and ethics in the name of science is very much in character. To top it all off, Loremaster's design is actually impeccable. Even if her personality leaves a lot to be desired, the visual elements such as her lab coat and red visors really accentuate her mad scientist persona. The only traits of Loremaster that raise some questions are her schizo and psychopathic tendencies, such as her delusions of still being an angel and turning the former ruling demons into her personal maids. The former could be attributed to her naivete, which was very much evident even before her fall as Azazel. However, the psycho tendencies such as her gleefully pushing around Subject 67, as well as relishing in Lucy's misery, are a far cry from her former self. All of this makes me wonder what truly happened that led to Azazel's fall and the subsequent character transformation. Or perhaps, one could argue that Azazel was always like this from the very beginning, but the right conditions allowed her mask to slip and let her true nature come to light. After all, desperate situations do reveal the true character of people. Suffice it to say, Loremaster, even if arguably the most morally bankrupt demon of Helltaker, is actually a well-designed character of her own. Which begs the question, why the hell was Loremaster so hated by a not-so-insignificant portion of the fandom? Well, the caveat to her well-designed is on her own. First and foremost, let's address the obvious crowd. The people that are unironically upset about Loremaster are the die-hard Azazel fans, who are deeply devastated to see their cute and wholesome angel become a psychotic and schizo-mad scientist demon. And even if some of Azzy's personality traits still carried over, in their eyes, Loremaster is a completely unrecognizable character. In fact, Loremaster took away a lot of what Azazel fans loved about her, becoming a cruel mockery of their cute angel. As a result, a rift appears to have formed within the fandom, where a portion of fans ignore Examtaker altogether and act as if Azazel is still their precious little angel, still living her wholesome and quirky life with the rest of the household. By the same note, many Lucifer and Justice fans are also upset by how much the two have been reduced to functional slaves. As a Justice fan, it does indeed irk me how she went from an awesome demon to some cheap maid. Though, unlike Lucy, at least she seems somewhat content. Look, I'm not exactly happy about Azazel's fall either, but some people seem to take it too personally. Like, come on people, it's just a fictional character at the end. That said, there is also another reason why people are not only upset, but also taken aback by Azazel's villain art, which is the camp that I personally lean towards. But before we dive to the next reason, Loremaster isn't controversial merely because she became a demon or a villain. Take a look at some of the prominent villains of popular media, such as Thanos from Marvel or the Joker from DC. One is a genocidal prick who wants to wipe out half of the entire universe, while the other is a psychotic narcissist who enjoys inflicting chaos and misery without any remorse. Both of them clearly aren't good people, not in the slightest. When Thanos was finally disintegrated by Iron Man's snap, I was mentally celebrating like the cheering people from the bar meme. People, including myself, actively rooted for his defeat. Well, unless you're one of those messed up weirdos who posted #Thanos was right. And no, Thanos wasn't right, you damn edgelords. Go touch some grass. That said, do people quote-unquote hate Thanos? Perhaps some people do. but I'd wager that most do not and rather see him as a well-written and compelling villain that serves his purpose very well. And even if Thanos' actions are abhorrent, his background and motivation towards his villain arc are explored, which provide crucial context and arguably put him under a more nuanced light, as opposed to being some generic mustache-twirling villain from one of those Saturday morning cartoons. Therefore, even if they're bad people, successful villains like Thanos, Joker, and Darth Vader aren't necessarily hated, and even have fanbases of their own because they are well-written characters. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about Loremaster, because her issue is how she was introduced. As much as Loremaster's character stands on her own, unlike other villains like Thanos or Darth Vader, the crucial context that explains Azazel's villain arc is missing by a large margin. For example, when Thanos witnessed his homeworld's death due to overpopulation and scarcity, he believed half of the universe's population must be wiped out to avoid the same fate. After all, resources are not unlimited, and in his own twisted logic, Thanos believed such ruthless measure was the only way to allow the universe to sustain itself. And all of this wasn't just in his head, as he actually had livid experiences of it all, thus embarking on his villain arc. Therefore, even if Thanos is the bad guy, this crucial context explains the motivations for his actions, thus making some sense for the audience. But once again, the same cannot be said about Loremaster. There are so many questions about what led to not only Azazel's descent to Loremaster, but also the events of Examtaker as a whole. What finally led to Azazel crossing over to the dark side? What caused her shift in her personality? Why is she so hellbent on studying the nature of sin? All of this missing context makes the events of Examtaker come out of left field, which is why, as opposed to downright disliking, for many like myself, it felt more confusing than anything. Sure, there are the official Helltaker mini-comics that supposedly show Azazel's gradual corruption, which result from interacting with the demons. Even so, the interactions shown are only isolated snippets that don't explain much and are still open to interpretation. Other than simply being around the demons, there's nothing that concretely explains the whys of Azazel falling. By extension, there is absolutely nothing that explains Loremaster's deranged and psychopathic tendencies, nor that the events of Examtaker were a foregone conclusion. In other words, there is a massive disconnect between the base game and Examtaker, which is why the latter caused so much confusion for many and anger for some. Therefore, if Loremaster was introduced with proper context and backstory that adequately explained her villain arc from Azazel, I am confident that she would have been much better received by the fandom. Maybe in her quest for researching the nature of sin, Azazel had a Pandora's box moment that uncovered forbidden knowledge of some sorts, thus spiraling her down even deeper towards dangerous depths. Maybe heaven decided it had enough of Azazel's shenanigans and exiled her, thus pushing her further away and closer towards the dark side. Or, if you want to expand the official comics, perhaps there could have been actual focus on Lucifer's efforts to corrupt Azazel, just like how she did with Adam and Eve. There is plenty of potential to explore these possibilities and what-ifs, which could have further fleshed out Loremaster and Examtaker as a whole. Sure, there would still be some die-hard Azazel fans that would cry foul no matter what, but I believe the additional developments would have put Loremaster under a much more compelling light. But due to the massive gap of missing context, Examtaker felt very disconnected from the base game and therefore felt out of left field. So, did Loremaster deserve the hate? My answer remains the same, so no, she did not. First of all, hatred is a strong word, and I think we should be a lot more careful in its usage. Secondly, once again, Loremaster by herself isn't a badly written character and does tie well into Azazel's character on paper. Therefore, the issue isn't much Loremaster, but rather the poor execution that didn't properly tie Examtaker's connection to the base game, especially the huge gap that shows the actual villain arc leading Azazel towards Loremaster. Methinks the resulting confusion probably led to a lot of frustrations among the fandom, which was then directed at Loremaster as a character, as she was an easy target after all. Still, I believe a lot of the anger was misdirected, when the fault was the writing. Now, is that to say that Examtaker was a bad game? Hell to the no! It's still a good game in its own right, and still very much a Helltaker game with a unique spin. And Van Ripper clearly has a knack for writing great characters, which is what makes Helltaker as a whole such an awesome game. But once again, the disconnect between Examtaker and the base game certainly made Loremaster's intro come off to a rough start. In conclusion, I hope I was able to provide something more nuanced about Loremaster, because even if I'm personally not a huge fan of her, I also want to be fair as opposed to immediately jumping on the hate wagon. Furthermore, the amount of hate towards her was not only undeserved, but even a bit overboard at times. It's one thing to dislike something, but it's a whole nother level to be so emotionally invested in hating on a completely fictional character. In fact, it's quite unhinged. To quote Patrick Starr,
"Take it easy, it's just a drawing."
but let me know what you think. Are you a fan of Loremaster, or do you prefer our sweet Azazel to remain the cute angel she is? Do you disagree with anything I said in this video? Before you comment below, however, I once again ask everybody to be civil with their discourse. We're all part of the same fandom, and again, it's just a fictional character in the end. No need to get so hung up over a drawing. Before we end this video, however, I'd like to do another what-if scenario like I did with the Helltaker. This time, it's about what happened to the other demon gals not present in Examtaker, since the only demon gals we saw were Lucy and Justice. In fact, it's a complete mystery, and I'm especially curious about the High Prosecutor Judgment and how her interactions went with Loremaster. Given Judge's character, however, she doesn't come off as one who would easily submit to Loremaster, at least not without a fight. And given her absence in Examtaker, I'd like to chip in another 50 cents. After the fallen Azazel finally overthrew the sitting Queen Lucifer, she proceeded to completely reorganize the Inferno along her own vision, turning it from an antiquated kingdom to a modern technocracy that maximizes efficiency and progress. And Azazel, elevating from a lowly demon to the new absolute ruler of Hell, bestowed upon herself the new title of Loremaster. Meanwhile, just like the old lords, Lucifer has lost her mandate to rule Hell and was reduced to a mere maid for her new master. Like many fallen dynasties of the past, the age of Morningstar was over and a new dawn emerged under Loremaster's directive. What followed was a wave of rapid technological advancements and scientific progress, all of which boosted productivity to unprecedented levels and grew Hell to new heights that rivaled even heaven itself. But such progress came at a cost of Hell's denizens, as the many technological advancements like automation rendered most of them obsolete, thus leaving them without work. But Loremaster, being the ever-resourceful individual she is, hated to see them go to waste and relegated them to test subjects for her horrific science experiments. Very soon afterwards, for many, the old regime under Lucifer now didn't seem too bad compared to their new management. At least under Lucifer, they had weekends off and paid holidays. Now, they were mere numbers on Loremaster's data charts. But, not all demons bowed down to Loremaster. The few but brave dissidents refused to submit to the usurper and managed to escape the Inferno. Those few but brave dissidents lived on to fight another day, waging a relentless guerrilla campaign against the new tyrant. One figure was the center of it all, leading the fight and becoming the symbol of relentless and dogged resistance. That figure was the former High Prosecutor Judgment, for she believed that freedom was still worth fighting for. She may not have the advanced tech of Loremaster, or the massive numbers of her armies, but as long as she stands, the resistance will stand and fight with her to the very end, and that makes them a thorn on Loremaster's side, as well as a force to be reckoned with. Only time will tell if Loremaster is truly worthy of her new mandate, or just another usurper waiting to be kicked off the throne. And of course, here's the finished drawing of Psycho, the archery demon. Can't think of a better event for my Japanese OC demon than archery, which is a quintessential sport within Japanese culture. Just like the previous art of her with a katana, her pinpoint focus and calm demeanor propels all of her arrows to the dead center of the colored targets. And that finally concludes this series. This was a lot of fun to make, and I'd like to thank all of you for coming along this journey. I initially started this series as a silly and casual hobby to practice making commentaries for my videos. Little did I anticipate, however, that it would not only evolve into proper video essays, but also be so well received by all of you. I know Helltaker is mostly known for the ocean of fan arts, a lot of them being very suggestive. But I've been more interested in the lore and world building aspects of Helltaker and its characters. And I know I'm not the only one because I see so many discussion posts on the subreddit all the time, such as what each demon girl's favorite food or regular job would be. So I decided to have my commentaries revolve around those topics, and now, I'm glad it all paid off. So once again, thanks for enjoying this series with me. Although the series is over, I'm not yet finished with covering Helltaker, as the next video will be a tier list of all the Helltaker girls. It's finally time for you guys to find out where each Helltaker girl ranks within my standing, so stay tuned for that, and until next time.
See, that wasn't so bad. The Enclave thanks you for fulfilling your contract.
Look how easy life is when you fulfill your promises. I know, but I'm still anticipating a decent number of dislikes, especially from those die-hard Azzy fans.
Don't mind them. If they can't see past reason, it's their problem.
Exactly, they're just in denial. But just one question though. Sure, what is it? Is Loremaster worth it? Well, you see, You know what? Helltaker is just a casual game about hot demon girls. Why the hell am I reading so much into all of this? Thank you to my patrons on Patreon for supporting this channel. My $5 patrons are Kapitan Sladek, Kitsap, and Chocobird. My $2 patrons are Komida the Prep Cook Demon. If you would like to appear at the end credits of my videos, as well as have early access and exclusive content on Patreon, feel free to hop on over to patreon.com/LTELawrence and give a pledge. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you would like to see my artwork as well, feel free to check out my other platforms like DeviantArt for my entire gallery. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, this is T. Lawrence signing out. Have a good one.